What's up, guys? January the 3rd here. We're back again for another episode of Pro Talk. And we got the man, Gunfish TV, Kevin Gunn. Appreciate you jumping on this episode. We're gonna talk all things river fishing from tidal rivers to just your regular rivers, all things shallow water, backwater, bassing. If you have not watched Kevin Gunn's channel, you're definitely missing out on just like that heritage of bass fishing. That's the thing that comes to mind whenever I watch the channel. So Kevin, I appreciate you jumping on this episode.
Yeah, man, glad to be on here.
So, kind of give us your approach when it comes to river fishing, because you fish tidal rivers and you fish just, I guess, your normal traditional inland rivers or however you want to call it. So, kind of, which one do you like better, and what's your approach? Is your approach the same? Is it different between the two different ones? Kind of walk us through that.
Well, it's pretty similar. The only difference is like the more inland rivers, they have outgoing flow. So when you have a tidal river, you have, an outgoing tide and you have an incoming tide. And you can really, look at a tide chart and know when these different tides are going to be. So you kind of know when you need to be certain places at certain times, what places are better on incoming tides, what places are better on outgoing tides. When you fish the more inland rivers that have just outgoing water, and it's really wind driven, so if you have a certain wind, it'll push back up in the river, it can cause the river to back up, and basically you can get still some, inward flow, or it can just stop the river completely, which makes things really tough. That outgoing tide is always going to be better, no matter what. So if you have the outgoing flow in a traditional river that doesn't have a big tide swing, or if you have a tidal river, that outgoing tide is always the best tide. Incoming isn't terrible, but you can talk to any tidal fisherman and they're going to tell you that outgoing is the best. It's the best. The water has done pushed in. It's up on the bank. It's pushed up. It's flooded the shorelines. And when you get that outgoing tide, it just really gets the fish fired up and they really get to biting. So it really, you want that water going out. That's one of the biggest things. You want that outward flow that just really gets the fish biting.
That's interesting because we have, I don't know if you heard, we got the Cooper River, which comes out of Santee. I got a bunch of buddies that fish down there. I've never been down there. I hear it's beautiful. They got like these rice fields or something like that. And they talk about how beautiful it is and how fun it is, but I've never fished it because I feel like, well, for one, it's a little bit longer of a drive because depending on where I put it in like Santee, it's 2 hours, so it's a little bit longer of a drive. But I'm just like, I've never fished a tidal river before. But um when you go to the swamp on Santee, a lot of the fishing down there is very current driven. So, how do you determine what makes a good area on a river? Period. Like, how do you determine what makes a good area on a river?
So one of the biggest things I look for is obviously current and current breaks.
Hmm.
So if you have good flowing water, wherever there's a current break, there's going to be fish there. That can be a laydown, that can be, a bend in the river, that can be a little point, little shallow water point comes out. That can be a lot of different things, but anywhere that you have a current break, that's going to create that slack water in that little break, and the fish are going to set up there, and the whole time it's bringing by bait fish, crawfish, just all this stuff, and it's like a buffet, like they're literally sitting there ready to eat, if they're in a feeding mood, ready to eat, and they just can, there's just limitless options. Basically they have just anything and everything that they could want coming by them, so it creates that little eddy where they can set in. They don't have to work hard. They're not fighting the current. They're just right there in that little area where they can chill out. But when they want to feed, that's where the bait fish are going to be as well. You have your crawdads, you have your bluegill, that's where your bait is going to be. And that's why they're always high percentage areas. So if I'm fishing a river, especially one that maybe I'm not familiar with, the first thing I'm going to look for is I'm going to look for current.
Hmm.
So if I have to run upriver to get into a heavier current or better current flow, I'm going to look at going upriver where it's a little bit skinnier. And then I'm also going to be looking for current breaks once I get up there. Like I said, lay downs, little creek mouths, little channel swings, all these things that really create these areas for these fish to set up at. Because a lot of people, rivers really overwhelm them because they're huge bodies of water. When the Bassmaster guys got there, came and fished the Chowan River to Albemarle Sound, where I live at, a lot of them just talked about how expansive and how big that body of water is. And,
Hmm.
really it's limitless because the Albemarle Sound has multiple rivers that flow into that sound. So you can, run up the Chowan or you can run up the North River. It's just you can go wherever you want. But no matter what river you went in, you needed to be going up and looking for current. And a lot of the guys that went up and found that with, Kyle Wetcher found those fish that he found in that little spawning deal. But whenever you go up a river and you find that current, that's where you're going to find the fish. So that's the first thing that I always look for, always. And if it's a tidal river, I'm looking at the tide charts for one, because if I'm gonna go and just fun fish it, I want to make sure I get there like 2 hours before the outgoing tide. That way I know I can be wherever I want to go. And when that outgoing tide switches, they're going to start biting. So that's going to be your best opportunity to catch fish. On a tidal river, like I said earlier, that outgoing tide. But creek mouths, current breaks. That's what you got to find.
So, what's your home body of water?
The Nottoway River. So the Nottoway and the Blackwater flow together to create the Chowan. So really, it's kind of, I live on the Nottoway River, but really
Mhm.
those three rivers I would consider to be my home bodies of water. Those are the rivers that I grew up on and that I
Mhm.
learned to fish out of: the Blackwater, the Nottoway, and the Chowan.
Now, where is is it is it the James?
Yeah, so the James is only about an hour and 5 minutes away from me. So you have the James River and you have the Chickahominy River. Now they are the two most popular tidal rivers that are around me.
I feel like I know a lot about well, not know a lot, but a lot of tournaments tend to go to the James. So,
Right.
do you fish there
Yeah.
often?
I don't fish there like often. I'd say I fish there probably 5 or 6 times a year. I fished several tournaments there in the past. I've actually done pretty good, won some tournaments out there. And you have the James River, then you have the Chickahominy River, and the
Hmm.
Chickahominy River runs into the James River. So
Okay.
basically, the James is pretty brackish. The Chickahominy, the mouth of it's a little bit brackish, but once you run up in the river, up towards the dam on the upper lake end, it's pretty much all fresh water. But one thing about the James River is being that it's brackish, a lot of times these creeks hold a lot of fish. So
Hmm.
a lot of times you don't tend to catch fish directly on the James River. You run off the river up into the creeks. The salinity levels in the creeks are lower. So the bass push all up in these creeks and it's a higher concentration of fish up in there. There are some bass in the river, but up in the creeks, there's a higher population in the creeks, just mainly because of the salinity deal. Now, if you go, way, way up the James River, then of course you're getting out of that brackish area and getting into the fresher water. But on the lower James, you really got to get out and get into those creeks to find some fish. You kind of got to get off the main river.
So, do you find like, because I know you fish like you go fish Power Plant Lake Anna.
Yeah.
Um, do you find that rivers are easier to fish than a lake, or lakes are easier to fish than rivers?
Well, it's a pretty funny deal because I grew up fishing rivers, literally until I was out of my teens. Just the rivers was all I knew. That was I grew up on the river, fished the river. That's where I learned how to fish. I didn't fish any big lakes, until I was in my probably early 20s, I would say.
Mhm.
So when I ventured out and went to these bigger lakes, Lake Gaston, Bugs Island, all of that, well, I got my butt kicked because I didn't know what I was doing because I was going to a lake and trying to fish them like a river. I'm up there and in the summer flipping 3 foot laydowns, and these fish are out suspended over 20
Mhm.
foot of water. It was a whole different ball game. But on the same note, when I joined a club back when I was, 16, 17 years old, they fished the river and they fished the lake. So they fished Lake Gaston, Kerr Lake, and then they also fished the Nottoway River and the Chowan. Well, you always had guys that were good on the river,
Yep.
and then you had guys that were good on the lakes. And the lake guys that were really good on the lakes, when they went to the river, they would get their butt whooped because they didn't know what to do on the river. And it was the same way with like me when I would go out on the lakes. I didn't, when I was younger, I just didn't know the difference between how to catch lake fish and how to catch river fish. Now, of course, in the spring and fall, there's going to be some similarities, but once you get into the winter and especially in the summer, that's two completely different beasts.
Right,
You can
right.
go to the river and flip 3 foot laydowns. You
Mhm.
can throw a frog all day long in a buzzbait, and you can catch fish and you can catch big fish. Well, I mean, you go to the lake, especially a deep, clear lake, that ain't working. That it's a whole different deal. So I would say that they definitely both have their own deals, and right now, I try to make sure that I stay good at both of them. I
Yep.
like river fishing more than lake fishing. I mean, I'll be honest, but I don't think any one is really any easier than the other. I think they just have their own different, application, different baits and techniques and applications to where you're going to catch fish on a lake and where you're going to catch them on a river. Me being a river fisherman, personally, I think river fishing is easier. But like I said, that's because I grew up fishing them. If you talk to a lake guy, he's probably going to tell you, catching them in a lake is easier. So I would say they're probably about the same. It's
Mhm.
just all in what you're used to. And, now I just try to be the best I can be at both. That's kind of where I'm at now.
So whenever you're going to these, so when you go into a lake versus
Yeah.
when you go into a river, or do you tend to have more rods when you go to the lake versus when you go to the river, or vice versa?
Definitely more when I go to the lake. When I go to a lake, I know I might need that shaky head. I
Hmm.
might need that jig head minnow. I might need the A rig. I might need that jerkbait rod a little bit more.
Hmm.
Whereas going to the river, I'm going to need, my jig rod. I'm going to need my flipping rod from a raised bug, my frog, my buzz bait, my spinner bait, chatter bait, the more like straight up power fishing
Yep.
stuff. Lakes, they can get a little funny. You gotta, and I mean, rivers can get tough too, but in the lakes, a lot of times you gotta really finesse them a little bit more. I feel like lake fish, and it all depends on where you're at, I guess, but I feel like lake fish are a little bit like not as aggressive. A river fish to
Mhm.
me is like a whole nother animal.
I
Like
can
that
see that.
that that fish that's an aggressive fish.
Hmm.
Like he's set up in that current. He is just a feeding machine. Like
And they're
he
probably
just
stronger too.
oh yeah, they're stronger, they're built different. They can be a completely different looking fish than a lake fish. But I just think river fish are a little bit more aggressive, and I think that's because of their environment. They're living in a river, they're living in current, they're having to, eat frogs and bluegill and just really ambush their food. Whereas in a lake, you have an abundance of shad.
Yep.
You have it's just a different deal. You might have a heron lake where you have offshore herring they're feeding on.
Hmm.
It's just a different fish. Like I said, that river fish, he's sitting up there shallow and he's eating turtles. I mean, he's eating anything and everything. And I just think they're a little bit more aggressive in just really by nature. I think they're just more aggressive because of their environment.
So do you tend to, so when you're fishing a river, do you tend to hit like some of the same spots all year long, or does it kind of change by the season? So like for example, like we'll just talk like Murray for example. Uh a lot of fish live on the points on Lake Murray, but like when, of course, when the spawn, they go to the bank. After the spawn, they go to these flat clay points because that's where the herring at. And I mean, they be in like a foot of water, just eating up on the bluebacks. As we get into the summertime, they're still eating bluebacks, but they pull out. Your boat will be sitting in 30 foot
Right.
on the edge of the points. And then like when they get to the fall, they kind of just be a little bit all everywhere. It's just really just bait continue wherever the bait is. Like the legit bait balls, that's where their fish are going to be at. So do you find like your fish on the rivers, do they like, all right, like if you go to, let's say this one point, they got a cypress tree that comes out just a little bit, you can go there any time of year. There's always going to be a fish there, or how does the fishing change throughout the season?
So if you got a good treetop with a current break with, let's just say 6, 7 foot of water on
Hmm.
there's going to be a fish there if the water is 38 degrees, and it's going to be a fish there if the water is 89 degrees.
Hmm.
That's just it's going to be, like I said, especially if it's in a current break, yeah, a lay down or just something that's really, really fishy.
Hmm.
There's going to be a fish there. There's
Yep.
going to be a fish there, and that's why I like river fishing because it's so visual. You know, you're really looking at the banks, you're really looking at the trees, you're really seeing everything basically you're throwing at. It's not often that you're really just scoping or like seeing a brush pile. I mean, yeah, you can catch fish like that, big lay down, might be submerged out in 10 or 15 foot of water, and it's going to have fish on it. But fishing a river is very, very visual. And that's how I grew up fishing. And that's why I flip and frog and all of that, throw buzz baits and stuff so much because you're seeing all your targets. You're not really fishing like a lot of points.
Hmm.
There's some basically your points are going to be like in the mouths of coves. There aren't going to be many other points throughout the river. So if you get to the mouth of a cove or you have a little creek that comes out
Hmm.
and that water's flowing by, I can tell you 100% there's going to be a fish right there. You might not catch him, but I can tell you he's going to be there. And he's going to be there in December and he's going to be there in July.
Hmm.
They're going to be there. So it's it's a very visual deal, but in the spring, the fish do move a little bit. So in the spring,
Hmm.
when they spawn, they want to be out of that current. Now they
Yep.
will spawn into current. They'll kind of, I've seen them spawn behind like lay down trees
Mhm.
before, up shallow up against a bank. But the rivers where I'm at fluctuate a lot. So, if you get heavy rains in the spring, the river will come way up. If you don't get a lot of rain, it'll be really, really low like it's been this winter. So these fish, when they go and spawn, they get out of the current and they go up into coves. And there will be like multiple waves of the spawn. So it'll be a lot of times the first fish to go up and spawn when the water gets in the upper 50s, they'll go up into coves and they'll go ahead and get it done.
Mhm.
And then they'll pull out and then a fresh wave will pull in and they'll do it. I've seen fish spawn in the river all the way into June. I've
Really?
literally, yeah, I've seen them on the bed in the June, because it really depends on like the water conditions. So if we have a
Hmm.
really, really bad spring with a lot of rain,
Hmm.
they will not spawn because it's almost like they know that it's going to be an unproductive bed.
Yeah.
Because if they go up there and try to make a bed when the water's super high, the water in 2 days could be 5 foot lower. So I think these fish just know, and fish and just animals in general just really intrigue me with when they know when to do stuff. But they will literally wait until they spawn, until that water's stable. It's almost like they know, they've been around, bass been around for millions of years. They know that if they go up there and spawn, it's not gonna work. And this has been trying to think. This has probably been 20, probably 20 plus years ago. It was back all the way when me and my wife were dating, but we were fishing the river back here behind my house, the Nottoway River, and it was the end of June, and we had had a terribly wet, rainy spring. The river was super, super high, and it was really muddy. And it had finally came down and it stabilized a little bit. Well, I was flipping a crawl, and I caught a 7-2, and it was complete. It was spawned out, and the tail was bleeding, dripping
Mhm.
blood. That fish was up there on a bed. And see, in the river, this is really weird too, because a lot of times in lakes, you know, the male will be up there
Yep.
after the female lays. The
Hmm.
female will pull off, go out into deep water, and the male will stay up there and protect that bed. In the river, you will catch females spawned out guarding fry with the males. you
Really?
will you will see them up there. There was, and this was when they came and did the mock shoot. When they came here, it was
Hmm.
like perfect timing, and it was so unfortunate because I lost a 7+ pounder during that shoot. And at the boat, it was freak thing. The split ring or something somehow on the spinnerbait cut my line. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. You can ask Sarita about it. It was nuts. It was a giant. But these fish will get up there on the bank with the males. You can see them up there moving. They'll be boiling up along the bank. And you throw a spinnerbait up there and they'll eat that spinnerbait. It's just because they're guarding, they're trying to really, fight off whatever is trying to eat, because like I said, in the river, that's a tough life for a bass. You have
Hmm.
bowfin, you have gar,
Hmm.
you have tons of pickerel. There's a lot of fish trying to eat that fry. So I think it's a little bit different than a lake in that aspect, because these fish know that they probably have to tag team whatever is coming after these fry and ward them off to be able to get them where they can live, because it's just compared to a lake. And I think this might be going back to earlier when I was talking about why I think bass are more aggressive
Hmm.
in rivers. It's just a tougher life
Yep.
for a bass. Not only do you have current, you have massive fluctuating water levels. You have tons of predatory fish trying to eat them every day. I mean, you'll catch a 2 pound bass that'll have massive scars on his side where a gar has done tried to eat him.
Hmm.
So it's just a little bit different deal for them, but definitely in the spring, the fish go up into coves to spawn. They're fairly easy to target in the spring. You kind of know where they're going to be. And
Hmm.
once you figure out they're in there, you can go in there and catch them, and you can catch them for a month. Like I said, it's just a wave coming and a wave going, and they're going to keep on coming and going and
Hmm.
coming and going until things are finally done. So, but really, the spawn is the only thing that really makes them make a push into a different area, because in the winter they will you'll get a good population of fish like at the mouths of these spawning creeks and of these coves, but that's really just because they're trying to get out of the current and get in these current breaks. But you can go and catch them right in the current. You can catch them in the current in the winter. You're not going to catch as many fish as you would catch like at the creek mouths or in the deeper little ditches that run up into those creeks and coves, but you will catch fish, especially like on the inside bends
Yep.
of if you have a good inside bend that comes around and then it drops off on the backside of that bend, those fish will be sitting there out of that current, just sitting there chilling. That water's going right over their head. They have to use very little effort. And when it's cold, the fish don't want to be fighting the current the whole time. In the summer, they don't mind it. They'll be in the hardest running water it is. But in the winter, they don't want to be in. So, but really, the only seasonal push that I see is in the spring when they move into coves to spawn.
That's interesting. Like, I feel like, so you pointed out like in the springtime, depending on the rain and stuff, the rivers will fluctuate a lot.
Right.
Do you have you noticed like, so there was course, it's not a river, but there, Sam Rayburn flooded one year, a few years back, and I think that might have been I don't know if it was an open or elite event or OFLW deal, but they were like flipping like picnic benches in the backs of people's yards.
Yeah.
So, how does your approach change as the water level is rising versus if it's going down? Like, does it are you still hitting the same areas, or is are you hitting some different areas? Are you excuse me, are you using the same baits? Like, how does water fluctuation affect how you attack the river?
So one thing I will, right before I jump into that, I will say that the water fluctuation is a lot more in the non-tidal rivers.
Okay.
So in the tidal rivers, they're not affected by the rainfall quite as much. They will muddy up
Okay.
and it will get slightly higher, but it's not affected as much just because it is a tidal body of
Mhm.
water. Now, the more inland rivers with the outflow, that's the ones that go up and down so much. And I will say, when the water is up, the fishing is extremely, extremely tough. It really spreads the fish out. It gets rid of those hard edges. So,
Mm,
a river, typically you have a good hard edge. So you have your river bank, it can be a steep clay bank, or it might be, maybe a little bit just a sandbar bank or something like that, but it always has that good hard edge. Well, when it comes up and pushes out of the banks, it really spreads that water out. It
mm,
puts it up into the swamps, it puts it up in the woods, and the fish really get in a funky mood. It makes it really, really tough. They're catchable, but it's tough. It is really tough. So, what I like to do a lot of times is I still stick with the same lures, and I try to kind of stick with the same areas because the fish are going to be there,
mm-hmm,
but I try to get as close to the bank or as close to the water edge as I can.
mm-hmm,
So if the water has came up 5 or 6 foot and it's up over the bank and pushed up into woods, I'm going to try to get like up in the woods. If it's the summertime, I'm going to try to get slam up in the woods up against the bank because they want to get out up against those edges. River fish to me, it seems like to me they really like to be at the water's edge. They just really like to be at the bank or near the bank, whereas a lake fish, they kind of, they'll go out there and roam. They'll kind of go wherever. They're really pelagic. They'll just go do whatever. They'll be on the bank, and then next week they'll be in 30 foot of water
yep,
chasing shad.
yep,
To me, river fish really like to get on that hard edge. They really like to get up against the bank or wherever the water edge ends, basically.
mm-hmm,
So I'll get up there. I'll try to see if I can catch fish up along the water's edge or as far up as I can get. And if that's not working, then a lot of times I'll go to the creek mouths because most of the time you still have that good point. The water, when it's high, is going to be running hard.
mm-hmm,
So you're going to have a good eddy there. And a lot of times I will fish those eddies. Now, you're also going to have kind of new created eddies by where water normally is not, so if you have great big cypress trees that are up on the bank, that normally aren't in the water. Well, if the water's up flowing around them, that's going to create some good eddies back there behind those trees. So I always look for anywhere that's like basically the water swirling. So if you can go up there and look at it, you can
mm-hmm,
see where that water's coming around it and it's swirling behind it. There's a dead area of water behind whatever it is, whether that's a lay down, a set of steps, a picnic table, whatever is in there. If there is a good swirl coming around it, there's going to be a pocket of dead water right there where that fish can sit and be out of the current. Because when the water's really, really high, like I said, they don't want to fight it all day long.
mm-hmm,
They want to be able to move in and out. So wherever these new created eddies are, that's what I try to focus on. And I catch a lot of fish when the water's high in the summertime on a buzz bait, a lot. I
mm-hmm.
catch them flipping too, But that buzz bait, like I said, they get in a little bit of a funky mood when that water gets up. So even if you know they're there, a lot of times just like flipping or something like that, I think they just kind of watch it fall down and they're like, all right, whatever. They're just in a little bit of a, funky mood. But when you bring that buzz bait over them, a lot of times
Mhm.
it's that reaction bite. They're sitting there chilling. That buzz bait comes over, just like that aggressiveness in their mind. They're just like, I got to eat it now or it's gone. They don't really
Hmm.
get a chance to look at it. It can be the same with a chatterbait. I've had some really good days on a spinnerbait when the water
Yep.
is up. Had some decent days on a frog, but typically I'm going to catch more on a buzzbait if that water is up. I've had some good days flipping too, but if it's winter, obviously a jig, something like that. But if it's summertime, I'm going to be throwing a buzzbait a lot. I'm going to be throwing a buzzbait a lot.
So I you brought up flipping. If you've watched Kevin Gunn's channel, he knows he likes to flip a swamp water blue rage bug. What so when there's current, do you fluctuate your weight size that you use, or you just have one weight size and that's what you stick with?
99% of the time I'm flipping 3/8. And that's a lot of people ask me that. Do I change my weights? Do I go to a quarter? Do I go to a half ounce?
Hmm.
99% of the time I'm going to use 3/8 if I can get away with it. Now, if I'm fishing like high water, heavy current, where that 3/8 just will not fall where I want it to, yes, I will bump up to a half, 5/8, whatever I need to go up to. So when it's falling, I'm getting that direct straight down fall. Obviously, if you're flipping behind a tree or up beside a lay down, where your pitch lands, that's where you want it to fall. You don't want it to be
Yep.
drifting out away from it. So I will adjust accordingly, but day in and day out, 3/8 ounce, whether I'm in a lake with no current or I'm in a river with moderate current, that 3/8 ounce is going to do what I need for it to do. It was kind of funny because when I went out on the Pamunkey River with Nordby, we
Hmm.
went out there, we were flipping rage bugs,
Yep.
and I was flipping 3/8. And he was flipping a quarter. And he told me his reasoning for flipping a quarter. He said, because in his mind, when he flipped, if he flipped with something heavier than a quarter, it was going to go down in the mud and disappear. Like the body, I guess, of the crawl, whatever, would go down in the soft mud and it would disappear. I personally, I think that's just a confidence thing.
Yeah.
If that's the way you're visualizing it and that's what you feel, you need, and that's going to make you fish better, then by all means, that's what you need to do as a fisherman, because we know confidence is everything. But the James, I've been, the Pamunkey, Chickahominy, out here on the Chowan, Nodaway and all, 3/8, and I catch a lot of fish. I catch a lot of fish on it. And I mean, especially that swamp water blue. That swamp water blue, blue crawl. That's I got
There
a
you
little
go.
pack right here. But
So,
blue
all
crawl,
right. Well, hold on. Since you showed a pack, the
yeah.
question is, how many packs of those do you go through in a year?
Oh my, a lot. I know last year, I think last year I'd ordered around 50 packs,
50?
50, and I know I went through at least 40 packs.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And that
No
doesn't even
way.
that doesn't even count the blue crawl that I went through, because I probably went through almost just as many blue crawl.
No way, dude.
Yeah.
So let
I,
me.
I know I know in the tournament it was this past May on the Chickahominy River. I caught over 50 fish that tournament, and I went through 7 packs of swamp water blue
That's
in
unreal.
that tournament. Yep.
So
Yep.
let me see if I got a pack right here. Uh, do I got one? Hold on. Let's see if you use these. Should have been more prepared. So I got a case pack right here of my favorite color rage bug. I might have told you about this. Maybe I haven't. But I think this is the best color rage bug that we make. Chameleon.
Chameleon. Okay. Okay. You showed me about it.
Have you used these?
I have not flipped a chameleon rage bug. I've used a chameleon rage just the rage swim no, not the rage swimmer, the mini scrub chameleon. I've used it on like the back of a swim jig and on the back of a chatterbait, but I've not flipped
They must have
chameleon.
discontinued that one because I haven't seen that. So look,
Really? Well, it might, it's probably from years ago.
so you got your swamp water blue, you got your watermelon red, you got I call it pumpkin seed because that looks like a pumpkin seed there. You literally got like every color that you could possibly need. And I feel like, in my opinion, this is the way my brain processes this. A chameleon rage bug is the only color that you need, and you can, no matter what the water clarity is, you can literally go and fish it. Whether it's clear, muddy, stained, whatever, the chameleon rage bug is the color you need.
Right.
If I had to have
And
one
so,
color, that would be my color.
yeah. And see if I had to have one color, it would be blue crawl. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might
yeah,
throw people for a loop because they
yeah,
say, oh, you catch so many fish on swamp water blue.
yeah.
But just year round, day in and day out,
Mhm.
that blue crawl to me is the one that I would pick over any other color.
So your
You
water
know,
that you're fishing is it tannic? Is it what is it?
so, so some is very tannic, very, very dark swamp water, very tannic water. It's, you can see 4 foot down, but it's almost pitch black when you look at it. You fill your live well with water and it looks like a cup of tea. Like
Hmm.
that's what the water looks like. It looks
Yep.
like tea.
Like Florida.
Uh, Yep, yeah, just like Florida water. That water is where this works so good. Now, this swamp water blue works really good in muddy water too, because the Chickahominy, the James River, the Pamunkey, all these tidal rivers tend to be very, very dingy and very dirty. You're not going to see a super ultra clear, or not anywhere around me, a ultra clear tidal river. They're
Hmm.
all going to be pretty chocolatey, is what I like to say. They have that kind of orangish coffee color to them. But muddy water and tannic water, that swamp water blue works really, really good in. A lot of people ask me why. I honestly don't know. I can't, I just know they eat it. And the way I came about that color was completely by accident because back in the day, me and my dad, we would fish and we would throw around electric blue. Now, electric blue used to be a popular color, for Zoom or
Yep.
for a lot of people, but it was a very popular color for Zoom. So we would throw around electric blue worms, electric blue color worms. Well, one time I wanted to go buy some electric blue worms, and there was a little teeny tackle shop out here around me, and it's not even here anymore. We don't even have one near me at all. But it was about 20 minutes away. It was called the Fishing Hole, and they had walls and walls of soft plastics.
Hmm.
Well, they had some crawls that were sapphire blue.
Yep.
So they didn't have any electric blue. So I was like, man, that sapphire blue is bright. Like it is bright, bright. I said, but I'm going to buy them. I'm going to buy them and just have them. So me and my dad went fishing. I ran out of the electric blue worms or electric blue crawls I was throwing. I said, well, I don't have any more blue. I got this bright sapphire blue. I guess I'll put that on and try it. And I'm going to tell you, went straight to whacking them. I mean, I went and bought every pack that I could find anywhere near me. And that's been over 30 years ago. I was probably 10, 12 years old, probably when this happened. And just, it was like, man, this blue works. Like this bright blue works. And my good buddy Scott, I still fish with him to this day. Made a video with him a couple weeks back. He went fishing with me, and I showed him to him. I said, "Dude, check out these sapphire blue. These things." But he's, "Oh man, them things are bright. Ain't nothing gonna eat them things. They're so bright." I said, "You wait." I said, "We go into the river. I'm gonna catch them." And I caught them, and guess what? he had to go buy every pack that he could get his hands on.
That's funny.
So it's just it's one of them things that just works, and especially in the winter, the late winter, and especially in the spring. That is when that blue is really, really good. I always say once I get into that late May, June, and kind of after, that's when I really flip to that blue crawl.
Hmm.
That's kind of when the blue, that swamp with a blue bite kind of fades a little bit. And it seems like that blue crawl, and they want that a little bit more green pumpkin. They still want that blue in it, but that a little bit more green pumpkin, not quite as loud of a blue.
Yep.
They kind of that bite kind of switches over a little bit to that. But in the late winter and spring, that blue, if you that's the time where if you told me I could only have one color, that would be swamp water blue. At those times, it would be swamp water blue.
Now I know. So there are some places, and at certain times of year, the crawfish actually look like that. Is
Right.
that does that is that where you are, or
So I've seen crawls that get pretty bright blue. Especially like in that spring type deal.
yep.
Of course, they have a lot of orange on them as well, but they have that blue tint on the back of the shell. And on the
Hmm.
claws, they have that blue
Hmm.
tint. Also, in the tidal rivers around here, there's a lot of crabs, and those crabs have a lot of blue on them. And I think that's why in the tidal rivers, that swamp water blue works so good where I'm at because of
So
the crabs.
my wife is from the low country and here in South Carolina, and they like to eat blue crabs.
Yeah,
Well, one day, her dad and her brothers brought some blue crabs to the house. And I looked at them and they looked exactly like that chameleon ladybug.
yeah,
I was just like, now this is pretty interesting here.
yeah,
Now, you would think like being where you are with the dark tannic looking water that you would be throwing a lot of more June bug and black and blue. Maybe more June bug because that's the Florida thing. Like Florida,
yeah.
June bug, black and blue, like that's the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, black and blue works. And I've used black and blue for years and years and years and caught a ton of fish on black and blue. I use the black and blue Bitsy flip a lot.
Yep.
But you notice what I have on the back of it.
Hmm.
I got that sapphire blue, that bright blue on the back of it. But black and blue works and June bug works. But from my experience, it does not outfish swamp water blue. It does not. And I don't know why. It's one of them things where it's just one of them things where you kind of like, it works. And that's just kind of where you leave it. But day in and day out, to me, that swamp water blue is going to outfish black and blue. And this isn't just me saying that. This is me where I've actually been catching them good on swamp water blue. And I'm like, oh,
Yep.
I'm going to put on black and blue. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to put on black and blue, and we're going to see if this continues. And then my bite fades. I still catch a few fish, but the bite fades. So I'm like, well, did they quit biting? Am I out of the area? I put that swamp water blue back on, go right back to catching them. I'm like, oh no, it was the color. It was the
So
color. Yeah. And I've done that enough to where you can kind of, say, okay, I ain't gonna do it no more. I'm, you know,
so this is it. This is the interesting part. I want to say bass can't see blue.
so
So I'm
that's
curious to know what that looks like to them.
so I saw I saw something the other day, and it was a color chart, and I've seen color charts of what bass can see, how the light spectrum, obviously they can see red better than any other color, is what they say. But they say blue is one of the colors that they can see the least,
Right.
which to me is weird because I'm like you, well, what are they seeing? Like, if they're not seeing it as blue like I see it, what are they seeing? Because if I can flip black and blue and they're not eating it, and I can flip green pumpkin and they're not eating it, but I put on swamp water blue or sapphire blue and go to absolutely whacking them, well, something has triggered them. Something is different.
So that's that weird part about bass fishing that I believe like there's a lot of science to it, You see a lot of people do a lot of underwater stuff. Uh you see a lot of stuff out there, people giving their explanation of stuff. But there are just some things about bass fishing that just don't make sense.
Yeah,
And that now in talking about this, this is one of those scenarios. So I did a video, I think I did a was it uh I did a video about the morning dawn filler worm.
yeah,
And I said this bait looks like nothing real under the water. Like it doesn't look like a red worm, it looks like nothing.
yeah,
But they bite that worm like it's no tomorrow.
yeah,
It don't matter the brand. If it's morning dawn and it's a straight tail drop shot type worm, it's gonna get eaten.
yeah,
And so I know they said red shows up better when it's like I guess in the deeper water and stuff like that, so they're able to pick up on it. But I'm like, here it is. You're fishing shallow water and it's tannic, so it's dark, and you're
right.
throwing a sapphire blue and or swamp water blue, and they are freaking inhaling it.
Yeah,
So I tell one of my buddies this all the time, and they don't and I know why I say this, but I'm like, you know, you can get all the science that you want with a like taking a bass eye and doing all this stuff, but we would never really know what it looks like.
nope. We'll
We
never
could
know.
we could try to do whatever, but I still feel like we will never know what it really looks like to him.
Yeah, and that's like the statement that I make. I've made it in my videos 100 times, but a fish is a fish.
Yep.
And that fish, he can do what he wants. He can do what he wants when he wants. He can eat what he wants. He can pick what color. He can sit where he wants to sit. He can go 30 foot out in the water and sit on the bottom, or he can be in 30 foot of water and be 1 foot from the surface. A fish is a fish. And we will never fully figure out a fish because I mean, think about humans.
We
We
can
we
barely
can't
figure
even
out humans.
we yeah, exactly. We're humans and we can't even figure out humans. So we definitely will never figure out another species. So that's why a lot of times I just in my mind I say I know it works
Hmm.
and I don't know why, and I'm going to leave it at that. That and sometimes that's just how you got to be.
Yep.
You look at something and you're like, oh man, that because that's one of the things that people comment a lot of times when I'm, flipping swamp water blue or I'm catching fish on swamp water blue. They're like, oh, that is so bright, I can't throw it. Like I bought a pack and I can't even bring myself to throw it because it's so bright. Like I look at it and it just looks like nothing that a fish would eat. Well, bubblegum worm don't look like nothing a fish would eat.
Mathile.
Bubblegum, yeah, methylate, lime truce, just the brightest colors ever. And a bubblegum worm, a methylate worm, lime truce, they're gonna catch a bass until the end of time.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They're gonna
Yep.
get eat. It just it's one of those things where we don't really know what triggers these fish to bite. There's been multiple days when I used to throw a trick worm a lot. I used to throw a trick worm a ton. So back before I threw a frog a lot, I would throw a trick worm because a trick worm was something I could skip. I could put it up in these spots that I couldn't get a lot of other lures. I could Texas rig a trick worm, put it on a spinning rod with 20-pound braid, slide it up under these limbs, get it up under these treetops and all. And there was so many days that bubblegum outfished white. When you would think white would be a little
White.
bit more natural, more a little bit more
Hmm.
shad, whatever. 8 out of 10 days on my bodies of water, bubblegum is going to outfish white. I have no clue why. I have no
I don't
clue
know
why.
nobody that throws a white worm.
Yeah, just white, just white. Now, I obviously I'm not throwing a white like Texas rig, like flipping it. I'm talking about weightless,
Okay.
weightless, just working that,
Yep, yep, yep.
Um,
Just
yeah,
basically right above the surface.
Exactly. Just right up. We're working it out, around the limbs and stuff. I can bring it out weedless, but bubble gum is gonna get bit. Methylate is gonna get bit. That bright white's gonna get bit too. That don't really look like nothing. It's a little bit more shad like, but a white
Yeah.
fluke, that's gonna get eat. You know,
But
a
see,
bubblegum fluke. It's just
I don't know if you watch. So there's a guy has a YouTube channel. He's on Strike King's team and lose. His name is Steve Rogers, like Captain
right,
America.
right,
Steve Rogers Outdoors, and he's done a lot of his stuff is very very good, and it makes you think. So he's done some underwater stuff, and he took a bunch of different worms that had the tips were different colors, so like red, orange, chartreuse. Um, I want to say maybe blue. I can't remember, and I feel like he had something white too. And he had the water was kind of dirty, and what he did was he has like an underwater camera under his dock, and he backed the camera off up to a certain distance, and all those worms disappear, all the colors disappear with the exception of white. I think it was white because I think black was another one, but white is the, of course, it's the most standoutish color that that stood out. But I mean, like you only really see people throwing a white bait. Well, soft plastic. 9 times out of 10, if it's a fluke or if they're sight fishing.
right. Yep, I agree with that 100%. Except, well, you know me with the white toad on my buzz bait.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You know. Now what, speaking of catching bass and whatever, I mean, what is a buzz bait supposed to look like? You know
I,
what I'm saying?
I,
What's a buzz bait supposed to look
I
like?
think so. Bass fishing, and you tell me your thoughts. I feel like bass are always they're just reacting.
Right,
It's not. It has nothing to do with. I don't think it has much to do with profile. I don't think it has a whole lot to do with that. I think bass are doing nothing but reacting to something that catches their eye or that has either whacked them on top of the head or swam past or something like that. They're just reacting
right. Yeah,
because
predatory instinct.
right. So
Yeah,
we've heard a lot of pros say, um, I it took me a while before it actually hit me like, what was it? Um, I don't know. They said like they was talking about like a trick worm or texture cinco or something like that. And I think the color was might have been like green pumpkin or watermelon red or whatever. It said it mimics a bluegill. A worm does not look like a bluegill.
not at all.
A rage bug don't look like no bluegill.
Nope.
So I'm like, how do we come to these particular things? And I know like being like with you fishing a lot of rivers, you're probably seeing a lot more or probably ran across more predator fish than we do on our lakes. Like so, like you call them pickerel, we call them
Yeah,
jackfish.
yeah.
But we got jackfish in Murray. I've seen a mudfish or two, not
Right,
many,
right,
but lots of gar, jackfish. Those are pretty much a lot of the main predator fish we have on Murray. Now, Santee, you see mudfish for sure.
right,
Um, you see mudfish, you see jackfish. You see gar every now and then, but it's more so mudfish and jackfish is what you see the most.
right.
And so, um, one thing that drew me to your channel, this was when I started following your channel years ago, was your fishing style. You're a shallow water angler. Um, you fished out of a Ranger RT 188.
Yep.
Is it the P model?
It's RT.
Okay.
It's not a P. It's not a
Okay.
P. It's the RT. Yeah.
Yep, the Ranger 188. And I was just like, man, I was like, I easily identify with you, your fishing style, and your channel because I'm like, and you were working, you're working, man. I was like, this is the type channel that I can gravitate to, and I can lean towards, and I can watch this type of content because I can't 100% relate to an Elite Series Pro.
Right.
I mean, our common theme is we like to catch bass.
Yeah.
And if you like to fish shallow, great. But I don't, I can't relate to that person. But I could relate to your channel. I know a lot of guys, a lot of my buddies that I fish with watch your channel because of your fishing style. Have you ever felt like, um, your, your, your fishing style has maybe hindered you from growing in other areas or using other techniques?
Well, in the beginning, I would say probably yes, because I was pretty stubborn. Like I was straight up. If I can't catch them flipping or frogging or on a spinner bait or buzz bait up shallow, then I'm just gonna get my butt whooped.
Mhm.
And I stuck to my guns for a long time. Now you see me kind of go. If I got to, I'll do what I got to do. You know what I'm saying? I do what I got to do. I got to catch a bass. But in the beginning, I would definitely say yes. It kept me from. It did keep me from learning a little
Mhm.
bit, and I felt like it kept me from probably being as good an angler as I could be. I
Yeah.
definitely feel like now I'm more of a complete angler and a better angler than I was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because and really YouTube is kind of what helped me with that because obviously I want to catch fish for my videos. Nobody wants to watch it. I mean, some people like watching videos where you're grinding and it's a really tough bite. And I mean, that's fishing. And hey, I got videos out there like that because if that's what it is, that's what it is. You're not going to go out there every day and absolutely smash them. But definitely those tough days and me really like, man, I got to catch two or three fish. I got to get me a video. I done fish for 4 hours doing what I'm doing, and this ain't working.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of started to expand out, and I started to say, okay, I need to get a little better at fishing deep. I need to get a little better with the little spinning rod in my hand a little every once in a while. I might need to throw that A rig a little bit more. Um, so I would say it definitely in the beginning it hindered me, but over the last several years, I've
Hmm.
definitely expanded and I feel like I'm a much more complete and better angler because of it. And I think that's one thing that people really don't like about live scope is it kind of you're really good like elite anglers or back in the day elite anglers. When you watched an elite event, let's face it. So let's look back, and I've watched Bassmaster and FLW my whole life. You were watching these guys catch fish shallow.
Hmm.
They were. There was a couple, there was a couple guys that were better,
Yeah.
deeper water specialists and
Mhm.
things like that were good with their 2D. Aaron Martins and some of these guys were really, really great offshore anglers. But the vast majority of the field they were going to be fairly shallow.
Yeah.
They were going to be throwing a spinner bait. They were going to be flipping. They were going to be throwing a jig, skipping docks. They were going to be doing all this stuff up shallow. Well, obviously now live scope has changed that, and it kind of definitely hurt some of those really good elite anglers that were shallow water specialists because we didn't realize how much of an offshore bite there really was.
Hmm.
It was, we never realized that in the middle of summer and in the winter and still in the spring when some fish are on the bank spawning, there's still fish out there with 30 foot of water chasing shad.
Yeah.
You can go out there and catch them on a minnow. I
Yeah.
mean, we would have never thought that. Well, we were thinking all the fish are going to the bank. All the fish are shallow. The water's warming up. They done gravitated up to the bank. We going up there with them, and fish are going to be there. They'll be there every spring for the rest of eternity. But there's also going to be fish out places where we never knew.
Hmm.
So I think getting back to why I think people don't really like the live scope, I think it kind of pushed some really great anglers, some specialty shallow water anglers. I think it kind of pushed them out a little bit. And then you had a lot of anglers come in that a lot of people felt they were one dimensional.
Yeah.
So they were just offshore minnow guys. They were offshore jerkbait guys, offshore A-rig guys, stuff like that. So it it kind of it kind of got to where a lot of that was just going on, just single that. But those fish have got a little bit smarter now. So now I think you got to be good at both.
Hmm.
So that's where I try to be. Is I try to be good shallow or the best I can be. Now I'll never be good or great in my mind, but as good as I can be.
Yeah.
And I also want to be as good as I can be offshore because that was definitely one of my weak points growing up fishing rivers, but where I'm used to looking at everything that I'm flipping to.
Yeah.
If I could touch the bottom, if I went down with my 7 foot rod and I couldn't touch the bottom, I was too far off the bank. I had to get closer.
Yeah.
I don't got out in the deep blue yonder, and I got to get closer to that bank.
So
You know that.
how does forward facing sonar play a part for you when you fish in these rivers?
So one thing, and I will say that I don't catch a ton of fish like specifically looking at the fish. So like say I go to Lake Gaston,
Yeah.
I'm targeting specific fish offshore, spotted bass,
Hmm.
largemouth, whatever. On the river, a lot of times you don't specifically target single fish. Have I caught single fish? Absolutely. I have. Last year, it was right around this time of year, I had almost 25 pounds on the jerkbait looking at those fish and caught them, specific fish. That does not happen often. Most of the time, when I use forward facing sonar in the river, I'm finding areas that has a lot of fish. So in other words, if I'm going along a good row of cypress trees on the Chowan and I'm like, this is a good stretch, you know, you can see those fish up around the base of those trees. So if those fish are really up on the trees good,
Hmm.
one tree will have 7 or 8 fish on it, and then that fish will have 7, 8 fish, that fish have. But one thing you'll pick up with and how you create a pattern is you'll notice that maybe the offshore trees, the trees that are out just a little bit more, have more fish on them.
Hmm.
Maybe the next day, those offshore trees don't have as many fish, but the inside trees have a few more fish. Maybe the
Hmm.
trees in 5 foot have a few more fish. Maybe the fish in 3 foot have a few more fish. So you're able to see that and you're flipping along. And if you're getting bit on those trees where you're seeing more fish around. So then you're formulating your game plan. Then you're saying, okay, I can just about completely exclude these offshore trees or these trees that are out more, and I need to focus more on these 3 foot trees, or maybe the trees that don't have briars around the bottom, or the ones that are, on the flatter banks. You know, river fish can be. I used to always say you couldn't pattern river fish. I said that for years and years and years, and I honestly didn't realize how wrong I was. I've realized now 100% as I got older that you can definitely pattern river fish, just like
Hmm.
you can pattern lake fish. They'll get on certain trees. Some days they might be on the trees that are clean, no briars or anything on the bottom.
Hmm.
Next time you go, they want to be on the junky trees with the briars all around the bottoms of them. They
Yep.
might want to be on the bigger around trees. They might want to be on the skinnier trees. It's definitely patternable, but it can be very, very vague. Like it can be like these little minute differences
Hmm.
can make the difference. But I use forward facing sonar to help me shorten that little figuring out curve on any given day to be able to see where the fish are at. Maybe the fish are not on the trees good at all, and they're actually out to my left, still in 5 foot of water, but they're out on the stumps or the laydowns
Hmm.
in 5 foot of water. And they're out there to my left where the trees are all on my right. They're out on the left where you would never cast.
Yep.
But as you're fishing along, you kind of swing it out there and you're like, huh, there's like 3 or 4 bigs out there on that stump. Wait a minute now. And then you flip one or two and you catch one and you're like, okay,
Hmm.
all right, this deal's going on. But one thing about forward facing sonar that blows my mind is seeing how the fish will change in a day.
Yeah.
Like see them be out off the bank in the morning, and then 2 hours later see them push, and you'll see them swimming up to the trees,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, boom, they're on the trees. You couldn't get a bite 2 hours earlier.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden you're whacking them
Mm-hmm.
on the trees, and you actually visually saw these fish make that move. So in the river, it's more of a seeing fish and finding fish deal,
Mm-hmm.
more so than a targeting specific fish. I would definitely say. Now, the when MLF came 2 or 3
Yeah.
years ago to the show one, now that showed you can do the minnow deal out there. You
Mm-hmm.
can. You can do the jerkbait deal. And I know it's going on out there, but I'm looking at them trees.
Yeah.
I'm looking up there at them trees, and I'm like, man, they up on them trees. That's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I might could catch 30 out there offshore throwing the minnow, but I might could catch five up there flipping.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to catch them. I want to hit them hard. That's how I want to do it. But people, a lot of my traditional fishermen that watch my channel, you
Mm-hmm.
know, some of them get up in arms, when they see me put up a strictly forward facing sonar video. Like my last video, I went to gas and had a really good day,
Mm-hmm.
caught some really good fish, caught them looking at them with the jerk bait. A lot of people don't like it, and I get it. I get it. And it's not the way that I love to go out there and catch them either. But also, I have to go out and catch fish to make videos. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go out there and zero when I know I could at least get bit using forward facing sonar. And not only that, I think a lot of people don't realize how much you can learn about fish behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of pros have said. And I agree with it 100%. I would say in the last 3 years that I've used forward facing sonar, I have learned more about fish behavior and how
Mm-hmm.
fish react than I did the last 35 years that I've fished in my life.
Yeah.
These fish do things that I never thought they did. In 40-degree water, these fish move like rockets when I thought they were slow as could be.
Yep.
These fish come off the bottom 100 mile per hour in
Yep.
40-degree water.
Yep.
And it's unbelievable to watch how aggressive they get on a jerk bait or on a certain lure, how they chase a crankbait that you're reeling fairly fast. You can't reel it fast enough to get away from it. I mean, 38, 40-degree water, if he wants it, he's going to come and get it. He's not that lethargic. 40-degree water, a fish will be sitting in 2 foot of water.
Mm-hmm.
In 20 foot of water, I've seen 3, 4 pound spotted bass sitting in 2 foot of water, just out there, just suspended right
Mm-hmm.
up under the surface.
Yep.
I've caught a 7 pound largemouth sitting in 20 foot of water, and they're 1 foot under the surface, like a great
Mm-hmm.
big old blob sitting
Yep.
up there, and throw to them, and they immediately eat it as soon as you bring it by them.
Yep.
It's mind blowing. It really is.
All right. So I got two fun questions for you.
Okay.
What's somewhere new that you would like to fish that you had never been to?
Oh man. Well, just anywhere, not a river, just like
Yep.
anywhere.
Yep. Anywhere.
I really want to go to Gunnersville.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Gunnersville.
How far are
That's
you
a
from there?
place. I think me and my wife were actually looking the other day, at some places to stay there, and I think it was like 6.5 hours. Not crazy, not that far away actually.
Yeah, but I think I'm
Um,
five and a half ish, close to six.
okay.
Um, I looked at there the other day. Me and a couple buddies. I told you about this. We think about we were looking at places to go. And that's when we talked. I told you about Raleigh and stuff like that. But I did look at Gunnersville, and I was like, we're only like five and some change close to six. Hopefully you'll hear my boy hollering. He cranky. It's time for bed.
Oh no,
Uh,
no,
so yeah, Gunnersville seemed like it would be fun.
yeah.
Um, Gunnersville would be fun. All right, if you could build any bass boat with whatever you want on it, what would it be and what would you have on it?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Hmm. You know, if I got, so if I was to build, if I could just have any boat and I was to build a boat and get another boat, I don't know. Just because with the style of fishing that I do now, and obviously I still fish a lot of rivers and, I got a John boat. So if I want to go way up river and beat on it, I can carry my John boat or whatever. I'd probably go with glass. That might surprise a lot of people, but I probably would get a glass boat. Um, Originally, before I got my Ranger, I was actually looking at skeeters. I was
Hmm.
looking at the ZX Skeeter
Yep.
charcoal with lime green. That was what I wanted. I
Hmm.
had the book, had the little book and everything.
Yep.
Um, so probably like a 19-foot Skeeter with a 150 on it, nothing crazy. I don't care about going 70, 75 mile per hour like some guys. Um, so just a 19 footer, a 150. I would definitely have to have power poles or talons on it. Like that's
Hmm.
one of those things when you
You,
have them, like
you
man,
have
you
to
can't
have
get
them.
rid of them. Yeah, you have to have them. Like
Yeah.
they are so useful. So definitely, I would have to have some kind of poles on the back. I would get in Ultrex or some sort of trolling motor with a spot lock on it. In the rivers, it really doesn't matter in the rivers at all, and that's why I have my four tracks on the front because when you fish a river, I mean you beating and banging. I don't even know how I haven't broke my live scope transducer off. I
Yeah.
have no clue
Yeah.
because it's just you're just running into stuff. It's stuff all under the water. So that's why I kept the four tracks on that, just because I mean, let's face it,
They're
the
bulletproof.
newer trolling motor, they just ain't built. They just ain't built for that beating and banging like
Yeah, that
that.
Vortex is bulletproof.
Oh yeah, it's bulletproof. That is an amazing trolling motor.
Hmm.
But I would probably get something with spot lock on it just for like fishing the lakes if the wind's blowing or something. You hook up on a fish offshore off a point, you can hit that and you're not blown halfway across the lake and trying to figure out back where the school is at or moved or whatever. So definitely I would get, a trolling motor like that, a spot lock, a newer spot lock, probably a 12-inch graph for live scope. I'd probably get a 12-inch graph. I don't need nothing. I don't need nothing crazy big. I mean, I got a 9-inch on my boat now, and I can see it perfectly fine. Um, but I mean, I would get 12 because when I go with my buddy's got a 12, I'm kind of like, darn, it is pretty nice, just a little bit bigger. But yeah, just 12-inch graphs. I mean, nothing crazy. But it would be lime green and charcoal,
Yep.
100%. That'd be
Yep.
that had to be that had to be the color scheme, but it'd probably be a Skeeter. I'd probably get a Skeeter. My
I
buddy, my buddy had a Skeeter, or he still has it. But I fished out of that boat with him a ton. Fished a lot of tournaments with him and stuff. And I always liked the boat. I liked the way it handled. I liked the way it looked. So I'm not a brand loyal guy or anything like that, but I'd probably get a Skeeter,
I'm
honestly.
surprised you wouldn't say like a Gator Tracks, like
I
Keith
mean,
O'Shea.
yeah, I mean that's a cool boat now. That
But
is a
those
cool boat.
you get them custom built and you can get them like because he had a one year he had a 20 footer with a 250 on the back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My buddy Lee. So
Yeah.
Lee. You
Yeah.
see, he fished on my channel and all. One of his buddies has a big one that he got custom built. Has a 250 on it. That boat is giant, 21 foot. I mean, that thing is wide. It's a awesome boat now. It's an awesome boat. But I'd probably just get a glass boat. I would, like I said, because now I'm at the point now because when I used to fish tournaments a lot, and back when I had my tracker, when I first started doing the YouTube, I had my 175. I would fish tournaments and man, I would run way upriver. I mean, I would jump logs, I would run over sandbars,
Mm-hmm.
I'd win $400 in a tournament, and I'd have to buy a $200 prop when the tournament was over because I had done destroyed it. I mean, and I did that so many times. It was like just winning for the point of it. Like it won't even the money. That was just to fix stuff that I done broke. You
Yeah.
know, I done got out of that a little bit now. I ain't all into that no more. And so I'm not. beating and banging my stuff as much, and I really don't carry my Ranger places that, I would beat it up on so bad. If I'm gonna go somewhere like that, then I'll just carry my John boat and go use that. Um, so that's why I would probably go with glass. The other thing, it is always a trade-off, and I've been wanting to do another video on fiberglass versus aluminum
Hmm.
bass boat because I did one years ago, like probably the first year I ever did YouTube, and it was the biggest video I ever did back then. But I wanted to do a new updated one. But each boat has so many pros and cons to it. Aluminum has tons of advantages to having an aluminum bass boat. You're lightweight, pulling
Hmm.
the boat, shallow water. I mean, my Ranger, you had one, that thing takes nothing to float,
Yep.
nothing to float. You can
Yep.
jump on plane in a foot and a half of water.
Hmm.
The fishability now of the aluminums is way better. Storage is great. So I would say there's less trade-offs with aluminum than there is actually with fiberglass. Fiberglass weighs more, so yes, pulling wise, you burn more gas pulling them. You need a bigger tow rig, but also that weight helps you have a better ride on choppy water. You're not going to get as wet. If you are fishing in wind, it's heavier, so it doesn't move as easy. Whereas on aluminum boat, you're fighting to stay on a point the whole time because that wind's really moving you. A heavier glass boat, well, that's going to stay there a
Yep.
lot easier. So there's tons of trade-offs and pros and cons for both. But I would probably, whenever I get another boat, like I said, it's probably gonna be a glass boat.
So when I had my Ranger, I had a 198P, loved that for I don't think I wasn't doing YouTube when I had the 198P yet. But had that boat, loved it. My thought process was I'm about to be like John Cox.
Right.
And then I started fishing tournaments, and Murray is my home lake. Um, and then when you understand how those fish set up on Murray, you then realize, okay, these fish like to be offshore when it's windy. And then you get that 10 to 15 mile an hour wind and you and that aluminum Ranger. And then you start to get some rollers and you
Yeah.
start getting beat to death, and then you just like, yeah, I don't know about this anymore.
Yeah.
And so, if I fish somewhere like you fished, where you fish at, I would probably still be an aluminum boat. Um, Santee, I still say glass because Santee gets big. Like
Right.
it gets rough. It gets big. It gets rough out there. No fun. Um, but like your point, glass gets expensive. I got a scratch on the side of my boat right now that I'm like, I don't think it's gonna cost me too much, but I I don't really want to know.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's you see, there's one part you see it and it's like, what happened? But the other part is so fine that you can't see it. I bumped into a dock. We had just got back. We was about to go to weigh in. Everybody's running right there to the dock. The wind is blowing right there. I dropped my butt off at the dock. I'm trying to back off, and everybody's weight is pushing me to the dock, and I'm trying to back off and push myself off. I was so mad that day, and I got that scratch where I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yep.
So to your point, man, with aluminum, it definitely has its pros, but they also have its cons as well because you got to worry about like cracking wells and
Which I've had plenty of problems with. I mean, I
yeah.
got I got silicone on the bottom of my hull right now because it needs to be welded again. I
Hmm.
got the same spot, just keeps cracking and cracking and
Hmm.
cracking. And I mean, right now I just got silicone on it. It's tight, it's good enough for right now,
Hmm.
but I got to get it rewelded, and that's one thing you really didn't hear about a lot in the
Yeah.
older aluminum boats. I just think they were built better. I think the aluminum was just better aluminum.
Mhm.
I think the newer stuff is just a little bit thinner, a little bit more porous. It has more weak spots in it, and I just think they're just not as solid.
Well,
Yeah, honestly.
the thing is with aluminum boats is like glass is it comes it's sprayed in a mold.
Yeah,
With aluminum, it's molded in a way, like
right.
it's folded
Yeah, it's
and
almost stamped almost.
right. And you're not gonna get the same strength points as you would in a glass boat out of an aluminum boat.
Yeah,
Um, but I say like if where you fish, if you're not fishing a lot of big water, I had a guy ask me because he was looking at I think he was looking at a 188. And I was like, I just asked one question. Are you planning on for around here? I said, are you planning on fishing a lot of tournaments? He said, yeah. I said, I don't think you need to do that. I
yeah,
think if it's your first boat, I think it's a good boat. I think
right,
it's perfect to get you. Like, I don't think I could have gotten my Skeeter as my first boat because I think it
right.
would have been too much boat to start off with.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, there was a lot that I needed to learn. Um, the speed out of my aluminum Ranger was 52. I thought I was rolling. I was like, "Mm."
yeah,
uh, and then the first time I took my Skeeter out, I had that sucker pin at like it's a 64 mile an hour boat. But
right,
going from that aluminum Ranger to that Skeeter, and I had the P model, so I had the pad. And when you trim them up, it's a big difference because my Skeeter sat up, and I was just like, it scared me. Like I hit 62, 63 at that time. I backed off of it because I got scared because I wasn't
right.
used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but man, like if you, what do you think about the new? And I'll let you go out this. What do you think about the new Ranger, them Alpha, the 208s? I think that's what it is.
Man, man, that's a massive boat. It's a beautiful boat. It's a nice aluminum boat, but I don't know if there's a market for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about what a $80,000 aluminum boat.
I thought they were like high 60s.
Okay, they might be high
Is it?
60,
Let's
but
look.
still, I'm not paying $70,000 for an aluminum boat. I'm not doing it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I can get a nice glass boat for less than that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the 19-foot skeeters are running now, like the ZX series. Um, I'm not sure, but
They're
I
like
know.
the ZX 200s are 62.
Okay,
And if you get one like 2 or 3 years old, you can probably get that like 52. You can probably catch like 10 grand off.
okay. And you know the crazy thing in 2019 when I was looking at the ZX 190 with the 150 Yamaha on it, you know how much the whole package was? You could buy it brand new,
What?
35,000.
That's crazy. So I got bass boat books all around my wall. You see this one here, that one there, like all different model boats that I like. Uh, I don't know what year that I got a Nitro Z19. The Z19 Pro was 40 grand.
Yeah, and that's
Tandem
the
axle
pro.
trailer, tandem axle trailer, nine at the console, nine up front. At that point, it was the Fortrex still. You throw poles on there, you were 45 out the door, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and like if you were like big dogging, like real, like big dog tournament fishing, 70 grand was a fully loaded 20 foot, 21 foot Ranger. Like that was the deal. That
yeah,
same
top of the
boat right
line.
now is will run you 115-ish,
That's crazy.
give or
That's
take.
crazy.
Like it'll run you. It depends on how many units you got. If you keep it
Yeah,
112, 112 at the console, 112 up front, and you don't have two units up front running four phases sonar, like there are ways you can economically do it and do things right. But most guys are running one at the console, two up front, and you gotta add live scope. Like the electronics is what costs so much. That drives the price up on a boat so fast. So this
right.
Alpha 208 uh is priced at I what Ranger got on their website at 62,370.
And that's base, right? That's like probably no like small graphs, and that's probably not even like anything good on it, probably.
All right, standard features a Maxim 70,
Maxim. Okay.
an Elite 7 at the console. Uh, it doesn't say if it has one up front. I would assume it does. It's probably another 7. Yeah, that's at base. Yeah,
So you already know you gonna junk all that. Ain't nobody buying no alpha and gonna keep any of that.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so by the time you price it up, you might be up there around 80,000. You know, and like I said, it's a nice boat. It's a big boat because I looked at it when I went to the Classic,
All right,
that
here you
one
go.
where I went
Here
to
you go.
Tulsa.
So if you get the cup package, so they got three different cup packages. The cup one package is Ultrex 80, Elite FS9 at the console, Elite FS9 at the bow, 3-in-1 transducer. That'll run you an additional 3 grand. If you get the Elite Cup 2 package, you get a Ghost trolling motor, two Elite FS9s with the 3-in-1 transducer. That's 3,500. If you get the Cup 3, you get the Ultrex, you get Humminbird Explorer 9 with Mega Side Imaging Transducer, Explorer 9 at the bow, Mega Down Imaging Transducer, and Mega Live 2 for call it 4,900. So you're talking what did I say? So you're talking 66, 67, and that still doesn't
And
include poles.
that's no poles. Yeah, that's no
Yeah,
poles.
you 70 grand in, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
no,
lot for an aluminum boat, man.
that's I would never, I would never pay that much for an aluminum boat. There ain't no way. There ain't no
That's a
way. And, you
it's a
know,
big boat now.
it's a huge boat. I mean, it's got all kinds of space in it now. That's a huge boat.
But
But you know, and another reason that I wanted to like kind of stick with the aluminum boat that I got, or with an aluminum boat, is just because of my channel.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that resonates with
Hmm.
people a little bit more because everybody doesn't have, you know, a great big glass boat with a 250 on it, you
Yep.
know, and I feel like even though my Ranger is not quite as modest as my Tracker 175 was, is still a very, you know, obtainable bass boat. You know, it's aluminum. It doesn't have a giant motor on it. I don't have, you know, an Ultrex and all this fancy stuff on it. That's kind of why I keep my graphs 9-inch graphs. I don't, you know, when people, even though people may not like, you know, the forward facing sonar or whatever, when people, you know, watch my stuff, I want them to see that you don't have to have 16-inch graphs. You know, you don't have to have a 21-foot glass
Hmm.
bass boat. You know, you can go out there in aluminum. You can go out there in a john boat. You can go out there in a canoe or kayak. Like, it doesn't matter. You can go out there and catch fish and be successful. And that's why I really like kind of fishing the tournament side of it and doing my tournament videos, because people have told me that they didn't want to go fish a tournament because they didn't have a big glass boat. You know,
Hmm.
they didn't have a you know a 250 motor, and oh, I'm gonna get beat. You know, I'm gonna get beat to where I wanted to go anyway, so it ain't a need to get. Well, I get beat everywhere. I got the smallest boat out of the whole club. I've had the smallest boat forever. You know,
Hmm.
I was out fishing out of my 175. I've had the smallest, slowest boat my whole life, and it wasn't because that was the only thing I could get. It was because I wanted to know myself that I
Hmm.
didn't need that to be able to do what I wanted to do. I didn't need that to be able to go and catch a 5 bass limit. I didn't need that to go and win tournaments.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of where I've always been, and that's why like I keep everything modest. That's why, you know, I don't have, you know, the elite rods and the custom pro rig. That's just because I'm kind of I'm that person that wants to throw the speed spools. I want to throw I want to throw the because you don't. In my mind, it's great. It's great to have that other. If you want to get the $300, $400 reels, that's perfectly fine. But I like for people to watch and see I'm using a speed spool. I'm
Mhm.
using that Mach 1 rod or that TP2 rod that isn't $300. I'm still flipping them trees and I'm still putting them in the boat. So that's kind of where I'm at because I know I kind of grew up that way. I didn't. It wasn't that I couldn't have the best stuff. It was just that I grew up fishing with the more modest stuff, the older rod and reels. When all my buddies had the low profiles, I was still using the Abu Garcia 5500C
Mhm.
that my dad used in 1979.
Yep.
So it was kind of that was how I grew up. So I just kind of kept it that way all through my whole life, and I'm still the same way.
And that's
So
what, again, as I mentioned earlier, that's what attracted me to your channel because, and that's why you have such a loyal fan base because of who you are. And you fit a lot of anglers. Uh, I want, it's not profile, but you fit a lot of anglers that I'll just say the working man. Like I'm a working man. Like you fit all the working man's like category as far as the anglers, the weekend warriors, like that's you. And I was like, man, like I enjoy and I enjoyed then and I enjoy now still watching that stuff because I'm like, just as your point that you said, like you are able, you don't have to have the latest and greatest. You don't have to have $100,000 bass boat uh with two 12s and a 22-inch MBT up front to be able to catch a bass. You
right,
know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
you can be good at what it is you like, the way that you like to catch fish, and you don't always have to break the bank. So my encouragement to you is continue to keep that because like that's why you have the loyal fan base that you have. And if anybody's new who hasn't watched Kevin Gunn's channel, go check out Gunfish TV. Uh one of my favorite channels to watch still to this day. Not just because of I know Kevin, he's cool down to earth dude, but it's just like I just resonate with Kevin because I'm like, man, I'm still a working man. I fish on the weekends. Uh, I like to get up shallow and flip all day long or catch them on the frog, boat flip them. You know what I'm saying? Like old school power fishing, man fishing. Like that's who I am. And yeah, so keep doing what you're doing, man, because that the people that watch your channel are watching you for you and what you bring to the table because they can relate to you. So keep doing what you're doing.
I
I appreciate
appreciate it.
I appreciate you jumping on tonight, jumping on this episode of Pro Talk. If y'all like this type of content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure y'all comment down below who else would you would like to see on this channel and what topics you would like to see us cover. I'm JB3, that's Kevin Gunn. We got to get back to living a dream. We'll catch you later.